What's good with y'all tonight? How you doing? It's your man Donald King here to do his thing. Getting started a little late tonight. I had a long day. Some things to get taken care of, but I get her done. Get her done. How y'all feeling? You alright? I'm chilling, man. Yo, I saw this post earlier today. You know, a lot of people, they talk past me. They don't talk directly to me. They talk past me, right? And, you know, it was something to the effect of, you're cool online, but something in person, I don't care. It's wild. You know what I'm saying? Forget who put it up. No, I remember now. But it's just weird, man. I hate having to be small for people so as not to be off-putting. When you're in the position that I'm in, you say the things that I say. You know, if you like people, and I like people, man. I genuinely like people. If you like people in the way that I like people, and you like particular people, specific people, then you wanna keep them around. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that requires you to be a little bit smaller than you are. You know what I'm saying? In terms of potency. But I think a lot of times people make agreements with themselves about who and how I am and the nature of who and how I am and what I am based on what I choose to present to them, which is always a conscious decision. I'm in a precarious situation where there's very little I can do that doesn't make me an outlier in anything that I apply myself to. And, you know, especially in the way of potency and things that I'm capable of doing, there are very few things I can do that won't separate me from the crowd. So I have to manage how much of myself I allow to be, how much of my actual potency I allow to be, to fill the room, so to speak, oftentimes. But don't get it twisted. Just because I play small around people doesn't mean that I'm that way. Not at all. I do that to make people not feel threatened. Not because that is my default way of being. Anywho, guys, I want you to understand something about me. I deal in mutualism. I lately, this year, I've gotten rid of a lot of people. I was close to like 3,000 friends. And shit, I've dropped, I want to say like close to 100. I'm thinking close to 100. Minimum of like 60. People for just being assholes. Look here, I deal in mutualism. You know what mutualism means? That means it's like, you know, it's an even exchange of effort. If I bring love to you, you bring love to me. If you don't want to bring love to me after I brought love to you, get the fuck on. I bring respect to you, you bring respect to me. If I bring respect to you and you don't want to bring respect to me, get the fuck on. I bring effort and goodwill to you. If you want to bring competition and arrogance to me, fuck out of here. I don't like that Judas spirit. You know what the Judas spirit is? The Judas spirit, though narcissistic, is based in competition. It's based in this notion that I should be superior to you and be able to impose my will on you and edit your life and your experience by and according to my inner sense of justice. And when you come to me with that spirit and energy, I can't see you as nothing but the ops. I can't see you as nothing but the ops. If I were just a dude, that would be one thing, but I'm a dude hosting a thing that I'm bound to. That thing hates human arrogance with a passion. It hates vanity, it hates narcissism, and though it understands how you came to be a narcissist, it has no sympathy for your circumstance whatsoever, because everything that keeps you narcissistic, it's things you practice. You practice being a raging asshole. You practice treating people like they're beneath you. You practice using people as targets to release your anger, your rage and frustration into. And I just happen to be hosting a thing that doesn't stand for it. Man, have you had any idea what's coming to these motherfuckers? These foul beings doing everything in their power to benefit themselves at the expense of the species. Have you had any idea of what waits in the wings for them? You don't want any part of it. And if you bring aggression and animus, not to me, to the thing I'm hosting, you're going to be right there beside them. Maybe learn how to temper your anger. Practice managing your emotions and learning how to neutralize that shit instead of trying to transfer it into everyone and everything else. But I'm 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes in, and I haven't gotten to the point of tonight's podcast. So we're going to do a parable. We're going to do a parable. I do these from time to time, but it's usually the parables that are designed to help you sort of consider these principles in story formats. Humans think primarily in terms of stories, and that is why I share so many stories. Just because it's like they're sort of designed to sort of create epiphanies or help you arrive at epiphanies through subtle, gradual shifts of your consciousness. And I'm going to share one now. We'll call this one The Maze. Right? So imagine one day you woke up and you were in a maze. Okay? You knew you were in a maze because you kind of knew what mazes were. You know what I'm saying? And you saw a bunch of corridors, and there were sharp turns at these corridors, and you sort of wandered a little bit this way, wandered a little bit that way, and saw more corridors, and you're like, oh shit, this is a maze. This is a maze. So you're in the maze, right? You have no way of telling how big the maze is. You have no way of telling where the beginning of it is and where the end is. Let's say it's a group of you all and you're just in the middle of this maze. So now imagine it's like maybe 20 of you in your party. A couple of you go down this path of the maze. A few others go down this path of the maze. And leaving trails of like little trinkets and articles behind you so you can find your way back into the maze. As you make your way through the maze and you begin to populate, you guys begin to spread through this maze a little bit more, and you start noticing that there are little things to eat inside the maze, and you start cozying up and making yourself feel right at home inside this maze. You know, as you spend more and more time in the maze, you know, you start to create a map of the maze. So you're like, yeah, okay, we're making progress. We're mapping out this maze. And you know, whenever you start getting lost, you guys have been down several corridors in the maze. Been down several corridors. You know, or not corridors, but it was just passages and things of that nature. I think corridor might be the right word. But it's like you've been down several and you've created these little maps. And these maps of the maze, the territory that you all know, they seem ironclad, just spot on. They become your ideal type. They become your point of reference for how to navigate through the maze. Now see, the thing is, as you're continuing to populate and grow and go down these corridors inside the maze. And all of a sudden, pardon me, forgive me, I lost my thought. As you continue to grow and go down these mazes, your map keeps getting bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, you start to view your map as an authority, right? Look at all we know about this maze. Look at all the things we know about this maze. Look at everything we've learned through this maze. We're masters of this maze. We are masters of this maze. Then all of a sudden, you build up institutions around the map you've made. And the institutions, they become the authorities on the map and how to interpret the map and how to build out the map. And all of a sudden, they're masters of the map. And every time you think that you want to go somewhere in the maze, you consult the authority. You consult not the map itself, but the keepers of the map for their prescriptions on how to get from point A to point B inside this maze. Right? So then all of a sudden, one day, a person shows up. One day, a person shows up and they have the entire maze projected into their mind. Out of nowhere, this person has the entire maze projected into their mind. And the person comes along, guys, hey, yo, I've seen the whole maze. I see the maze. It's like in my mind right now, I see the maze. Right? And people are like, bullshit, you can't see the maze unless you're looking at the map. Unless the institutions that guard the map tell you you can look at the map and tell you that you're looking at the maze the right way, then you don't know the maze. So then all of a sudden, this person who claims to see the maze, they say, oh yeah? I bet you that if you travel down this way, you'll see this series of corridors. And you travel down that way and you see this series of corridors. And there you're kind of like, oh man, that's nothing. You probably just gleaned that from the map that's held by the people in the institution. And you're like, nah, it's not even that. Look, but check this out. Here's something I know you can't find on the map that they're keeping at the institution that they're giving you little versions or portions of. And you start describing things that go beyond what's on the map that's been built out by your people. They go well beyond the map. And all of a sudden, it brings us to the point of the parable. If you check, if the person checks, if someone checks, let's say you're the person who has the map beamed into your head. And people who are at the institution who have the map, they can check to see that everything that you're suggesting is accurate. And not only have you mapped out the corridors, you say what's above the corridors, you say what's beneath them. If nobody can poke holes in what you're saying, right? What does that leave people with? It leaves them with the opportunity to be smart, to be dumb. And I realize I changed tenses in there, but we'll get it back on point we'll clean it up as I continue forward. You know what I'm saying? Went from first person to second, third, back to fourth, back to first, whatever. But the point is, if it can be verified that what you see is more detailed and more accurate then the map that the institutions hold, it puts people in a position to choose whether or not they're going to be smart or dumb. Let's switch the tense back and put it on you. If someone demonstrates that they can see the maze exponentially more efficiently and more accurately than the mapping system that your people have made based on how far they've traveled into the maze, not knowing where it begins or ends. If you can compare what you've learned to what they claim to see, and see consistency in what they're saying, but then also understand that their model predicts things that yours can't even predict based on how you've built out your mapping system, what do? Do you try to compete against them? Or do you probe for more information? Do you try to compete? Or do you try to learn? This determines how intelligent you are. Let's say that you're a master. Let's say that you have all sorts of information about the map that's held at the institution. Let's say you have all sorts of information about that, and you come across this person who you feel you should be superior to, and they have an awareness for the maze that far exceeds the entire mapping system that's held at the institution. What do? Do you try to learn or try to compete? Do you go to the person and be like, oh, you don't know about this, and you don't know about that, and here's what I learned, and here's it. If they consistently demonstrate that they perform well beyond the limits of your mapping system, what do? Does your pride prevent you from exploring? Maybe look at it like this. Maybe their mapping system is accurate, but only to a point. But maybe that point is so far beyond the limits of your tiny mapping system. Maybe their understanding, their grasp, maybe their grasp of the maze is only good to a point, but that point is so far beyond your tiny little mapping system that in order to get to the point where they're wrong, you still have to explore what they're saying. You still have to try to understand, and even in trying to understand, you learn more about the maze than you knew previously based on your existent mapping system. What do you allow to think for you? Your reasoning or your pride? See, if you think with your identity, that is the collection of meanings, symbols, beliefs, stories, habits, practices, behaviors, attitudinal trends, and social effects and treatments that you've collected through the course of your life and seek to self-actualize through. Your identity is the story you tell yourself about the world around you and your place and value within it. If you think with your identity, someone coming along saying something that you learned, information that you've internalized is wrong, what are you going to do? Your pride's going to do all the thinking for you. You're going to fight, you're going to bicker, you're going to try to compete, protect, and preserve your belief of correctness and your innocence of justice. But if someone who has a better grasp of the maze comes along and consistently demonstrates they know the maze not just better than you, but better than those you look to as authorities on the maze, if they consistently demonstrate that they understand the maze better, The only thing that would prevent you from trying to understand what they understand and see what they see and learn what they've learned and have a level of awareness that matches theirs and possibly at some point could surpass theirs would be pride. Do you think with your brain or do you think with your pride? If you think with your pride, you're dumb. I don't cut corners about that. I don't pull punches with it. If you think with your pride, you're a stupid person. Stupid means mentally lazy. You know what's supposed to process information and reality for you? Your fucking brain. If you skip thinking about shit and delegate thinking to your pride is always going to take the shortcut. The pride is always going to say that you're right and that everything that doesn't reflect your inner story back to you must be wrong. And it'll tell you to compete against everything that doesn't agree with you. It makes you fucking dumb. You come across someone who has a better grasp of reality and or the maze than you, and your first thought is to compete, you're fucking stupid. It's an opportunity for you to learn. An opportunity to surpass your limits. Hell, even if you wanted to just surpass the authority of those who claim to exercise dominion over the mapping system itself, if you just wanted to surpass them, it behoove you to investigate. Try to understand what the person who sees the maze is talking about. But most of you just want to stick to what you think you know about the map. You'd much rather fight over whose interpretation of the map is correct than you would actually learn the fucking maze. You don't want to do the mental work to improve. You just want to do the laziest thing, which is fight to prove that what you already know and what you've already settled on is fact. You can go into any alley, kick over a trash can, and find a gaggle of ideologues fighting, barking, and belching over who's right about shit none of them understand. Pride makes you stupid. If someone more intelligent than you or someone who's more learned than you comes along, it doesn't take anything for you to shut up and listen for a little bit. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to accept what they're saying as authority. You don't have to do anything other than consider something over and beyond your personal feelings and beliefs. If you're unwilling to consider anything beyond your beliefs, you're a fucking retard. You're dumb. If you're quick to form beliefs and or agreements with yourself about how things are in reality, sans doing the work to actually make sure you understand what you're talking about or vet your view and perspective, then you're fucking dumb. Back to the parable. Imagine that this person who could see the maze in its entirety Made you aware of the fact that it wasn't a maze at all. What if they told you the maze wasn't just where you built your home, but it was your original home and that it wasn't actually a maze? What if they imbued you with knowledge of self that helped you figure out how you exist in relation to this thing that you were calling maze, and all of a sudden you realize that the walls of the corridors were traversable, and while you were part of them, you were actually part of the maze? What if they could give you a level of understanding and insight into the maze that made it so that you weren't fearful inside the maze, and you weren't thinking through an outlook of scarcity, always looking over your shoulder, wondering what's coming to get you or what lurks behind the corner you can't see around? What if they gave you a sense of purpose? What if all of the secrets and all the answers to the questions that had plagued you the entire time you and your people were trapped in this maze were just available? And the person that could answer the questions for you and not necessarily tell you what's right or wrong, but give you strong indications in which directions to look and help you marry your mapping system to the greater and more accurate mapping system of the maze. What if they could coordinate and correlate and scale everything so that you were enhanced? You'd have to be a fool to think that your best bet was to compete against them. Now, here's where it takes a twist, right? Now, imagine people within the maze decided that they wanted to create a game wherein learning the most amount about the maze and capturing the majority of the maze for themselves and living and benefiting at the expense of people inside the maze was how they entertained themselves. Right? Let's say they trended more and more people into following their little clique. Then all of a sudden, learning the maze took like second seat to seeing who could take the majority of the maze for themselves and get other people out of the maze for themselves. What if you had to choose between learning about the maze or trying to win the game of who could capture most of it? That's the second way to tell how intelligent or stupid you are. If you don't know what's beyond the little map you all have created, you don't know if the maze already belongs to somebody. What if you're destroying parts of the maze and littering up the maze by killing people? Just trying to capture more of the maze for yourself? What if the maze was alive? What if the reason why the person who saw the maze could see the maze is because the maze was communicating directly with that individual? What if every person playing this stupid game in the maze, destroying parts of it, hurting people, causing damage, being a narcissistic, greedy, competitive, parasitic little shit, was actually racking up debts to the maze that they would absolutely be forced to pay back? Changes things, doesn't it? How smart are you? If your map is only this fucking big, and at least by and or according to scale, the map is infinite in all directions, and the only thing you know is what you've done in this tiny little section right here. And if scaled, this section that you filled out, that you mapped out of the maze, in comparison to the maze being the size of this fucking planet, you made all sorts of ripple effects, all sorts of enemies, all sorts of problems. Just serving yourself, trying to win this stupid game of who could capture the most. How stupid would you be to think that the rules and systems of agreements you all came up with in this tiny little section applied to something as large as the entire planet? What you came up with and agreed to in a space this big, a foot by a foot, applied to everything on this entire planet. How foolish would you be? Would it not behoove you? Would it not behoove you to go to this person who could see the maze and ask him questions about it? Hey, what exists beyond what we've mapped out? And theorize based on what we mapped out. Or would you be stupid and double down and try to prove to this person what you think you know, and trying to compete against them? The person is explaining the maze, and your dumbass is like, oh, I'll compete against them with what I know about the maze. Here's an experiment we performed that means that what we know inside this box applies to everything in a system as large as this planet. And just to scale, 1 foot compared to the rest of this planet, like depths of the ocean and even down to the core, even though this planet is small as fuck, it's ridiculous to think that what I come up with in this tiny little box could apply to everything. You know who would step to the person who, pardon me, who saw the maze? You know the only type of people who would step to the person who saw the maze? Only the brave, only the honest. People who weren't so phobic of being disempowered, people who weren't so traumatized by the socialization process that they had to block out everything that didn't reflect their inner story back to them. Only the powerful, only the brave, only the settled would go to the person who saw the maze and be like, what else do you see? Most people, unfortunately, they would double down on their pride. They would try to compete. Which is why the majority of the species goes in the trash. Socialization process is brutal. Most of us were turned into cowards before we were even given a choice. That said, everything that I do is designed to help people find their way out of a state of cowardice and into bravery and autonomy. The reason why I'm always talking about honesty, the reason why I'm always talking about reasoning, is because the more you employ reasoning and honesty, is the braver you become. But you have to choose it. Every person can be brave and honest. Every person can learn about the maze. Every person can learn what exists and functions beyond the little map humans have made of the maze of reality. But you got to be brave enough and humble enough to fucking listen to something that doesn't agree with what you've learned and take on authority. You got to be brave. If you're not brave, then you're going to do the cowardly thing, and you're going to surround yourself with people and effects that say you're right, that the person who sees the maze is wrong. You're going to go on telling yourself stories about the maze and which corridor leads down which path and why you're great and why you deserve to be rewarded and yeah. That's the way it works, people. Either brave or cowardly. If you want to know the maze, you're going to have to be brave. You're going to have to put on them explorer boots. And you're going to have to... you're going to have to... What's the word I'm looking for? Well, you're going to have to trailblaze that shit out, dog. You're going to have to be brave enough to go where convention won't. You have to be brave enough to look in places for answers that people who function at the institutional level are too scared to look for. If they go to the bottom of the ocean, you have to go to the deeper crevice. They go to Mars, you better go to Jupiter. They go to the moon, you better go to the dark side of it. Yeah. Anywho, that is the maze. How smart are you? If someone has a tool that you don't have, what do? Do you try and compete against them with your tools, or see how their tool can possibly help you build something better? If someone comes to you with a talent, what do? Do you try to compete with your talent? You try to build something better with assistance from theirs. If you're a prideful person, you will always choose competition over betterment. You would choose competition over reasoning. You would choose competition over honesty. Anything to win, which is the surest sign that you're corrupt. Guys, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Y'all already know what it is. It's your man Donald King. I'm here to make you sing. I was trying to sing today. I was trying to sing some Jeff Buckley, man. And I could not remember the notes. Now, normally my tonal memory is like excellent, but I was trying to sing "Forget Her." And I got to there's a strange chord transition. It's a brilliant song, but it just throws the notes off in my head. So it's like, let's see. While this town is busy sleeping, all the meadows are away. I walk alone to stop my weeping, 'cause she'll never change her ways. When your voice won't work with you and your pitch is really solid, it's bad. Don't fool yourself. Fool yourself. She was a heartache from the moment that you met her. You see, I can't get my voice to do what it's supposed to do, man. It's that time of year, though. Anyway, guys, it's like I'm talking shit right now. Forgive me. Yo, what it is, we got, y'all already know I shoot these podcasts Mondays and Wednesdays, Facebook Live. Obviously, this is Sorting and Sorting Principles. This is the name of the podcast. Separating principles of natural organization from those of viral parasitic organization and or corruption. So that's the whole deal. I also am on Instagram. I'm Avatar Cycle XIII. That's Avatar Cycle 13. I fly all these videos over to my YouTube channel. This is actually podcast episode 102, I think. So yeah, man, I've been putting all this information out here, man, giving y'all opportunity to go check it out at your convenience. This time around, instead of leaving it to a bunch of people to write a story, we're doing this shit in real time. I'm giving you everything that you ever wanted to know. If you're a religious person, I don't care what religion you are, you want all the answers that basically religion can't supply, and science can't supply, and all those other, and philosophy can't supply, academia can't supply. If you want the answers, I'm documenting them all. I'm documenting them all. This is the cheat sheet to reality. So, shit, it's on you. Can't say, no one ever told me. Well, it is what it is. Yo, also post content to Medium, stories, parables, similar to the one I did tonight. Better, though, because I actually wrote it out. And, yeah, just things to help you sort of conceptualize a lot of these principles. I do several essays that are on par with scholarly articles, yet I can't call them scholarly articles for the simple fact that I don't source other materials, because through the Avatar perspective, I can actually see the principles in real time, and I'm going to be more accurate than what other people have said prior to my life experience and or prior to me writing the pieces that I write. So yeah, even though English sometimes leaves much to be desired, and I have to take several passes to try and get things, find the balance between accessibility in terms of language models and keeping things as close to principles as they possibly can be. English is a shit language, man. But yeah, man, guys, if you get any sort of appreciation out of what I do and you want to Salt Bae your boy with a little bit of love, you can always hit me up on Cash App at Donna Kang. That's DonnieKang. Also, you can feel free to join the Patreon family. I'm Avatar Cycle XIII, Avatar Cycle 13. Proceeds go to building this up to a larger platform. Again, I want to reach as many people as I can before I'm out of this body. And, social constraints, they hinder this entity I'm hosting from being heard. We use whatever can come through to help remove the constraints so that I can operate from a state of fluidity. Yeah. So yeah, man. Again, the parable of the maze, man, tonight, it really just is to illuminate how you process information in reality. Do you see things through the parasitic mind? Do you see everything through a lens of narcissism and or self-idealizing, competition, aggression, and greed, which will cause you to compete against things that you feel devalue you and or which steal attention from you, attention that you would apply towards gaining favor and thus consuming from within the hive? Or do you reason shit out and do what makes the most sense? If you choose reasoning and honesty, then you're more than likely going to be on the side of compassion and empathy and everything natural. Everything natural is balanced. Everything that's parasitic and everything that's corrupt is parasitic, and everything that's corrupt and or parasitic is just a vacuum of potential. Reason why you have to get rid of parasites and parasitic thinking and parasitic modes and they just suck the life out of everything. They do. Think about that situation in the maze. Situation with the maze. You sit here and you have an opportunity to interact with somebody who has an expanded sphere of awareness for everything around them, and you and everybody could come together and elevate collectively, or you can be a narcissistic shit and suck all the potential out of the situation just trying to benefit yourself and suppress this thing that could go to elevating everything. Suppress this person. Vanity, it makes you dumb. Pride, it makes you dumb. You know, this is why diseases always end up killing themselves and the host along with themselves. Because they're fucking stupid. Can't be me, and also think at the level of the system. You're either thinking at the level of self or you're thinking at the level of the system. If you're thinking at the level of the system, as in the parable of the maze, then you're like, yo, everybody, this dude has an awareness for the system that far exceeds what we've mapped out to this point. Let's politic and parlay with him. Let's see what's up. If you just want to win the race that's been created in this maze and you're like, oh, I want to get more of the maze for me, let me suppress him and see what I can do to exploit what he's saying to benefit me, then you destroy the maze, you destroy the potential of the group rising, you destroy everything, ultimately including yourself, if the maze is, as I've suggested, a sentient thing. Parasitism is dumb. It can't think above the level of self-interest. People who think like parasites can't think above the level of self-interest, and as such, they never see the calamities and the dangers that they create for themselves 2 steps down the road because they're so busy looking after what they want in the moment. They're fucking dumb. And if you let dumb people make decisions on behalf of you, you're dumber than them. Guys, it's your man. I'm out.